The M1911 is a gun that's been around since, well, yes, since the year 1911. That is a really, really long time. For the U.S. military, the age of a weapon design alone is no reason to get rid of it if it works, and so it stays until the year 1985. This was enough time to develop some strange variants, and frankly, the U.S. military used it well. Although the M1911 has been replaced by the Beretta M9, it still sits in some armories, waiting for the day when real stopping power is needed again. It made it through two world wars, so you cannot go wrong having some of these in reserve. Some of the strange variants of this legendary pistol did make it to the stage of being adopted, while others just became prototypes. All in all, there are still at least 5 rather weird examples of this gun when it comes to military use as such. There are more indeed, but those were not meant to see use on the battlefield. Number 5, the Delta Force STI 40 Smith & Wesson 2011. Delta Force chose to adopt its own version of a weird 1911 that stayed for just a short period of time. In fact, looking at this 1911 from the standpoint of the development of modern-day guns, it is rather a 2011 than a 1911. A 2011 is based on the 1911 design, but it features a double-stack magazine vastly increasing its capacity. The gun was made popular by a company with the name STI, which was now changed as Staccato. It was produced 1911 and 2011 for a long time and before the name changed. Delta Force was always a fan of the M1911 and did not follow the switch to the Beretta M9 immediately. This special variant we are looking at is weird in more than one sense. First, it did not come chambered for 45 ACP, but for 40 Smith & Wesson, and it fed from double-stack magazines. However, it was still a 1911 insofar as it was a single-action-only design, featured an exposed hammer, a grip safety, and some controls. While Delta did not use this gun for long, it is not clear for how many years exactly it was in use. Nowadays, it's been a collector's item and a very valuable one indeed. These guns are neat and interesting when it comes to handguns, that non-standard and chambered for a non-standard caliber. Number 4, the Machine Pistol M1911. World War I showed that the artillery and the machine gun ruled the battlefield. That brought the trend to try to make everything full auto. This concept of having mobile machine guns and even early types of submachine guns did exist already at this time. But the mobile machine guns were not that mobile, but in return rather heavy and bulky, and submachine guns were not that widely introduced as one might think. So getting some machine pistols out there made a lot of sense for the people of that time. In the U.S. military, the M1911 was the standard firearm, so Colt and Schwartz used it as a basis to develop their idea of a machine pistol. It came with a forward grip, a compensator, a stock, and extended magazines to compensate for the much higher rate of fire in full auto. However, they hit the same problem similar projects faced over time. The slide of a pistol moves rather quickly. This makes for an absurdly high rate of fire. Not only ensured this had the magazine was empty in a second or less, it also meant that the machine pistols were very hard to control given their small size and low weight. The military experimented for a short time with this idea, but dropped it rather fast when it showed poor results for high ammunition consumption. Number 3, the M1911 Gunblade. Rock Island Arsenal was well known in its days for being willing to experiment and for coming up with some pretty weird stuff. One example is the combination of a 1911 handgun with a 1913 Patton Cavalry Saber. The blade was attached below the barrel, and this monstrosity was held by the pistol grip of the 1911. The idea was to be able to shoot what was not that close and to stab or cut what was closer than comfortable shooting ranges. You might now think that the added weight of the blade might make it hard to shoot this abomination accurately. However, the engineers have thought of this as well and added a wire stock so that it could be aimed like a rifle, giving you the accuracy you need, of course, within the limits of handgun ranges. This gun did not catch on, as it never made it to the production stage. However, it was not as weird in its time as it seems. Then cavalry attacks were still a thing. Riding a horse, you could shower the enemy with handgun rounds and then wield the blade once you closed in enough for it to matter. This way, you solved the problem a cavalryman had when switching from his pistol to his saber. There are no reports available what brought this experiment exactly about or how it worked in trials if they were ever conducted. Number 2, the OSS Bigot. The name of this gun is a suggestion in itself, but it does in fact not stand for an M1911 that is somehow prejudiced. Instead, it's a play on the word spigot. The Office for Strategic Services, in short the OSS, was looking for a silenced version of the M1911. However, they did not go the way one might expect and simply work with a suppressor. Instead, one M1911 was converted to actually shoot darts. The darts worked similar to arrows or bolts, and they got their energy from a .25 caliber blank. All in all, 5 different darts were designed to work with this gun. Some were single use only, some could be reused, some had no fins, and some came with reduced fins. And they were rifled variants as well. The darts themselves had a length of 4 to 6 inches depending on the model. No data has survived the time to tell the story, if at all, and if yes, how well these darts worked. Also, this specific M1911 was never used in the field, so that there's no action reports as well to draw conclusions from. Number 1, the guide lamp stamped M1911. War is an expensive business. There is simply no way around this simple fact. Even in the days of the Great War, also known as World War I, feeding an army and getting it everything it needs has cost millions and millions a day. Since then, prices have only gone up. So, it makes sense for the military to look for ways to reduce costs. In the end, that is a purpose in itself. The idea is to not spend tax dollars but to build more for the same amount of money. And speaking of World War I, there was simply not enough M1911s to go around when it started. So there was a new way needed to increase production rates. The Guide Lamp Division of General Motors came up with an idea to cut costs and production time for each individual gun. With the experience of the budget-friendly stamped steel Liberator, the Guide Lamp Division set itself on creating a stamped steel handgun. To make it possible to produce more in less time, they also simplified the controls. That included the mag release, no grip or thumb safety, and a simple Parkerized finish. To replace the safeties, which were deleted, the rear sight could be folded backwards. This way, it stopped the hammer from striking the firing pin. The result was a gun that never made it past the prototype stage. But it's probably a good thing, given that it had no real safety apart from the folding sights. There are no reports if this gun actually did work, but pictures suggest that it was, well, rather ugly. The M1911 is a fascinating gun, for it was that good right from the start that its basic design survived until today, and it's still in use as a range and self-defense weapon. It's reliable, easy to use, and surprisingly easy to control when shooting. No wonder it stayed with the military for so long, and with the civilian shooting community even longer than that. If you know of another weird 1911 variant for the U.S. military that we overlooked here, hey, let us know in the comments. Explain what made this gun so weird, and tell us if it was actually adopted or just a prototype.